Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lesia Kohut and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Today, we have a very special guest with us, Reverend Karen Oxrider from the Global Truth Center, LA. In Karen's bio, she writes, both Wanderlust and a reverence for nature are in Karen Oxrider's DNA. She is most centered when she is either in another country, and she's been to more than 40, or exploring nature. And we'll find out about how important nature is during our conversation with her. She writes, I am humbled by how small I feel, how much more I have to learn, and how I know I am part of something bigger than myself whenever I'm on an adventure. Karen also has 20 years in nonprofit management, focusing on youth leadership and environmental education programs. She has been in the science of mind and spirit teachings for over 25 years. She received her practitioner license over 12 years ago, and she recently got her Master's of Religious Science degree from the Emerson Theological Institute and is now Reverend Karen Oxrider. For the last 7 years, she has also served on the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation Board in Golden, Colorado. And from the little bit that I know of Karen personally, because we met almost a year ago through practitioner studies when I was in practitioner studies, Karen is a lovely, beautiful, sparkly gem of an individual. And I just love being in her presence because she is so inspirational. She just has this lovely light air about her. And one of the things I definitely want to talk to her about is her favorite movie and how spirituality kind of weaves its way in and out and is such, a great, so beautifully illustrated in this movie. But before we get to all of that, what I would love to ask Reverend Karen, which is what we ask all of our guests, is, Reverend Karen, who do you think you are?
Thank you. What a great question. I know right here, I know that I am God and expressing in such a creative way. I am a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a niece. Oh, I love that one. I love all of them. I am connected to this greater source. I'm a world traveler. I'm a practitioner. I am a board member in my personal life. I'm a camper. I'm a trail wanderer. I'm just all of this and so many things. But when you get right down to just to the one word, I am God in expression.
I can feel that when you say that. I can feel it. And part of it, I think maybe today here is a beautiful sunny day and I sit in front of a window, which just shows the infinite expanse of universe. There is this crystal clear blue sky. There are some eagles or falcons, hard to tell, soaring in the background. There's farmland in the distance over there. There's ocean over there, and there's mountains, in the distance. Some of them are a little clouded over, but that whole feeling of I am God, that knowingness, that truth, that is something that resonates for me. That is something that is when if someone were to ask me the question, and when I think about the question, who do I think I am? The deeper I go into my spiritual studies and the more I get in touch with who I am, the more I really, really, really feel that. And even though I don't think I've had nearly the experience in nature you have, I definitely know when I am in nature, even if it's sitting on this side of the window and just seeing all the trees and the mountains and the air and everything on the other side, never mind being in it, boy, do I feel it then. I mean, there is just something for me about being in the middle of a forest, on a forest trail,
with massive, massive fir trees or whatever it is that is growing in the forest that is just hundreds of years old, reaching up for the sky, and then all of the smaller stuff, the ferns and the ground cover and the little flowers, and then just hearing the birds and maybe a butterfly go here. Oh, there's a hummingbird right there. And just to experience that and to feel it and to feel the aliveness and to feel that interconnectivity and the energy that's flowing in and out and through and until recently just sort of feeling like, wow, this is awesome, this is amazing, and having that sort of feeling of being such a small part of it. And then reading Emerson, reading Ralph Waldo Emerson essay Nature, where basically he says, when you stand and in front of a mountain or in a forest and you're thinking like, wow, that's amazing. Don't just think, wow, that's amazing. No, you're that amazingness too, because nature is who and what we are. We are it, it is us, we're one and the same because we are all that incredible, amazing, super powerful, always present divine energy that is the allness of being.
Wow. So
So,
beautiful. Yeah, so beautifully put. I was reading something the other day just about how we should visualize ourselves as trees, or the more that we can incorporate our thought of a tree, reaching up to the sky, open at the top, open for all of it, but yet our roots are firmly, deeply planted into the foundation. That's what gives us our strength, our resilience, our knowingness of what to do and how to do it and what to say, all of that, just that whole visualization of being one with nature, one with all of it, and that tree. That kind of summarizes when you were talking about that. That made me reflect onto that reading. Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I like that. And that actually reminds me of the talk that one of your fellow ministerial graduates gave when you guys did your 10 talks at the end
Yes.
of your ministerial studies, when Reverend Kirby was talking about the taproot of creativity and how she was talking about the tree at the tree of life and how there's all this stuff that we see out here. And she even wrote about it in her thesis, where there's all of this stuff that's going on that we can see, the leaves, the branches, the blossoms if they're happening,
Yeah.
the trunk. And then, like you said, which is also so firmly rooted in the ground. And there's this entire network going on underground of interconnectivity and communication. I mean, I'm thinking of, mycelium and mushrooms and how they're so interconnected with everything going on. And there is this communication that's always happening, this flow that's always in play, whether it be sort of that underground, we can't see it, but we know that it's there and it's working for us in our favor, for our benefit, or whether it's, the communication with like the roots through the trunk into the branches and all the, leaves and everything, our life experience that we kind of see out here. It's such a beautiful image.
And I think just to take that one step further, that strength that we get from our roots, moves into our life experiences. We know that there's always going to be winds. We know that there may be hurricanes in our life, right? But the
Mhm.
strength of our roots into the ground as that tree enables us to sway
Yeah.
with the experiences of life and hold firm, especially in those wild rides of hurricanes or tornadoes, but and that strength you're talking about, that grounding, for me, that comes from spiritual practice,
Mhm.
and I get that. I get that from being out into nature.
Yeah. Yeah, that, and grounding, this is a slight offshoot, but grounding, my husband, Glenn, over there, I can't even remember how this came up, but he, in the last month or so, I would say, has actually been going to ground. He has actually been physically, intentionally, purposefully grounding by either going outside and standing barefoot on the grass for, a certain amount of time every single day. And then recently, and you're going to talk to this more, Honey Bunch, because I don't really know what it is, but he bought some kind of sheet that has copper wire running through it that we now have on our beds. And last night was the first time that I slept on it. He's been doing it for a couple of weeks now, I think. And I haven't even had a chance to talk to you about this yet.
Do tell.
But I have to say, it was as soon as I lay down on this sheet, and it's just this mesh. I don't know what kind of fabric it's made of, but it's just this black mesh that we put on the mattress underneath the sheet. And then it plugs into, one end plugs into a cord that plugs into the outlet. And so there's this grounding current that is flowing through it the entire time. And I swear, I don't know if you experienced this or not, but I swear as I was lying on it, right away, I just lay down, I felt the current. I felt the buzzing. I felt the aliveness. And I just thought, for a moment, like, is this my imagination? What's going on? But then I thought, no, like I'm feeling this. And it wasn't really a pulse, but it was a current. Like there was a vibration that was happening. And so I lay on my back most of the night. I was on my side at one point, and I woke up at one point and then was able to fall asleep really easily. And this morning when I woke up, I was doing some of my morning meditation and my spinal alignment exercises. And I've started listening to some binaural beats that are specifically focused for spinal alignment. While I was lying on this, and then I got up to do my other exercises, and I realized that my neck wasn't as clicky on my left side as it has been for probably close to a year at this point. And this was just after one night of lying on this grounding sheet, which is, I don't even know, but clearly it did something. So Honey Bunch, can you talk a little bit about what this energy and current and grounding business
is? And before I do, Karen, have you heard of that before, earthing or grounding?
I have not. I'm so interested.
Nope.
I'm ready to write it down.
All right. Well, there's a free documentary on YouTube. It's called Earthing the Movie. And that's the one that's associated with the guy who kind of rediscovered the benefits of having as much time spent on Earth as possible. So there's another one with a guy in Alaska who sort of takes a bit more. He was a documentary filmmaker, and he took a bit more of an approach of like, I'm going to try this out. And he sort of healed his town up in Alaska using these various types of earthing equipment that this guy, I think his name's Clint Ober, the guy who sort of started this, had come out with. And basically this guy, Clint Ober, was back in the 80s, he had made his sort of millions in cable television, like laying cable, selling the old satellite dish stuff, whatever. And he got very, very sick. His liver was almost destroyed, and he was sort of on more or less death's door. But for some reason he went off, just sold everything, gave it away, and went off into either New Mexico or Arizona. And he spent a bunch of time with some Native American communities there. And he noticed how many people were just walking barefoot all the time, and how the mothers would talk to their kids and say, if you're going outside, remember to take your shoes off, So they just knew, but he didn't make the connection that they knew it, but they didn't say the benefit. They didn't necessarily have a system in place to explain the benefits of this. And he ended up doing like a very crude thing where he took a long, like a 4-foot steel rod, slammed it into the ground, connected a simple wire to it, and then put some duct tape, like metallic duct tape, across his bed and lay on it. And within the first night or two, he just realized his sleep was way improved, and gradually his health, stabilized, and he got more and more healthy. And since then, this guy has been doing amazing things with things like recovery blankets, like for I think it was the American Tour de France cycling team. they were able to go through this sort of grueling series of days of it's like extreme impact on the body, and your body doesn't have a time to sort of naturally go back to its normal state. So the purpose of these grounding mats, and it's similar to the one Lesia said that we have on our bed, is to get our sort of bodily voltage in harmony with the Earth's, right? So you're basically it's like being part of the Earth again, right? So in the example of the Tour de France team, they had so much inflammation in their muscles, all of their organs were kind of inflamed because they were just pumping everything for hours and hours and hours and going to the limit, but they would wake up refreshed, and they were just beating the records and just going through their day, and like everyone was like, what's going on with the Americans? But it's just an amazing thing. But this guy, because he was already a millionaire, he started just making prototypes, making them better, trying to get research done to prove what he knew about the benefits of earthing, or grounding as they call it. And he just kept giving away these sort of prototypes and then improving it. And now he has a website called, I think it's earthing.com or something. And it's a Canadian one too. And yeah, so I sent away for these mats, and the whole point of it is, it gets your body sort of, most pain it derives from inflammation, right? So the cells in your body are inflamed, your muscles are inflamed. So anything that Lesia was saying with her neck being out of alignment and stuff, it's because it hasn't had a chance to go back to sort of what it would if you were sort of sleeping on the floor at night, which I guess for millennia human beings were doing, right? They were just, until a few hundred years ago, everyone was pretty much on the ground, right? And they walked on the ground until, the advent of rubber shoes, right? They were on leather, which would conduct electricity. So if they're walking on leather shoes, you're sort of getting the benefit. If you're walking on rubber or plastic, or even things like, those Birkenstocks or whatever, like they're comfy, they're good for your feet, but they're not touching the ground. So yeah, and there's someone who even came out with like a series of earthing shoes. So it's like a little thing that goes inside your shoe and then outside on the heel, I guess. So as much as possible, you're touching the ground every time you walk. It doesn't work on, say, tarmac, the blacktop, but it does work on concrete, because that conducts electricity too. So you should try it if you have any,
Well, I am. I just made some notes. I'm really excited about this, because I have to say, even going back to just being out in nature, Brad and I, Brad is my husband, we just got a little 2-person tent. I know you guys are going to think this is crazy, but we just bought it because we've been sheltering in place, obviously, but we bought it and we slept outside in our backyard. We camped in our backyard, and just sleeping on the ground in the tent. Yeah. I imagine that is kind of what you're talking about when you're, don't wear shoes or just having something that really connects you to the earth. There's something about that. I believe it.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah. Well, so I want to hear what benefits you have, if you do get any equipment, or if you just, like I was just doing for about a month, I just I sat on the bottom stair of our patio, sort of down into our back garden, and put my feet on the grass part, and my bum was sitting on the bottom step of the sort of walkway up to our patio. And even that, like for half an hour, was like, I feel better,
Yeah.
So, but as much as possible, I guess the whole point is
And I think the fact that you are very mindful about that, and you are open to whatever you received from that experience, or having your feet in the grass, or you're open to that. And I think that's, for all of us, that's the receptivity of the goodness, of the greatness that's available for all of us. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
That's great, Glenn. I'm gonna be in touch with you for more information. I'll let
Yay,
you.
another convert.
And I'm sold already. You're preaching to the choir.
Wow, thank you.
All right. So okay. So back to the grounding before this. This sort of
Yeah.
material or man-made form of grounding. So you have traveled to many, many, many different places in the world, over 40 countries. And one of the things that to me sounds super interesting is that you and Brad had the opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro a year and a half-ish ago. And I would love for you to tell us a bit about that experience. And then there's something in there. Ask me about, ask her what the Milky Way looked like in the middle of the night during her final ascent of Mount Kilimanjaro. So if you could talk a bit about that, that would be great.
There, to any of the listeners who have had the tremendous opportunity of exploring in Africa, specifically Tanzania, specifically Mount Kilimanjaro, I have to tell you, it was the hardest thing I have ever done physically. You can only climb the mountain with guides. And so there was like 10 others and guides with us. And it took probably about 5 days to go up, and you keep acclimating as you climb in these overnight, very basic huts. But I have to tell you, when we talk about just being so connected, it was just so personally rewarding, everything that I saw on the trail. And most of the time you can't even see Kilimanjaro because of the clouds, Kilimanjaro is like, 19,000 feet in elevation. But it was on our last night, right the morning before, we saw the tip from the trail, snow covered, thinking, oh my gosh, that is where we're going, right? And we stayed all night in this little hut. We got in at like 5 o'clock, had dinner, went to bed. They woke us up at midnight to have a little breakfast because they wanted us on the trail right after midnight, like 12:30. So you're actually ascending the last part of the trail, probably the last 8-10 hours on the trail going up. And we got up, and it was that night we were on the trail, moving up, and the stars. I mean, I felt like I could just reach out and touch these stars. And that is when I mentioned in my thesis that I felt like this small. There's so much in this universe. There's so much creative energy behind all of it. That was just an amazing connection that I wish I could really relay better in words, but just knowing it inspired me to my core, seeing this starlit sky with millions of stars, and knowing that so much was out there that I didn't know. And sometimes don't we always think we know a lot? Well, we don't when we're in that situation. I was just humbled to my core at the magnificence of nature, and just listening to the sounds and being where I was, on this ascent. We were at about 17,500 feet at that point, and I was just in awe. And I'm sure we all have had experience. It doesn't have to be on the highest mountain in the world, but even don't we all experience awe at some point, like watching just a magnificent sunset, or sitting on the beach where nobody else is around, or it can be as easy as just gardening in the backyard, and you listen to the birds early in the morning, and you just connect to that allness, that oneness, that I know that there's certainly something bigger and grander than us that is at work. And that was just a defining moment for me, just unmatched by anything else I think that I've experienced. Is just how small I am. And how much I want to know and learn and be open to receiving. And it's just a gift that the universe provides us every day. But again, if we're too busy, or we're not mindful, or we don't take that moment to really see and feel and listen, we miss it.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I went camping, where it was the kind of camping where we actually were mountain climbing. So we either had a base camp and then we would do trails during the day, but then come back, or we would be going from camp to camp. So we'd be carrying everything on our back so that we could set up camp anew somewhere else. And one of my favorite places that I have ever camped at is Castle Mountain in Alberta in the Rockies. And that, I feel like I had a very similar experience with that first night that we were there, and after the campfire went out and we all went to our tents, just looking up at the stars from there, and it wasn't even a super high mountain, but just looking up at the stars from there. They're hearing the sounds of the forest, and I mean, at night there aren't as many, but just hearing a few sounds of the forest, but you know, in between those sounds, just absolute stillness. And then this blanket of stars that were just so numerous, so infinite, so just glimmery and shimmery. Wow. I mean, that was decades ago, and I still remember what that felt like, and I can see in my mind's eye what that was like, and I yearn to go back there because it was such a beautiful place. And then there's sort of the flip side for me, or a flip side, if you will, where I marvel at watching plants grow. Whether it is the little jade clippings that I rescued from, I had a beautiful jade plant that was 14 years old, I think, and it was given to me on the first anniversary of my bakery in Toronto. And I love jade plants. I grew up with them. My mom has one that is decades old, and it is pretty majestic, even though some of it has broken off in the process, but it has, you know, grown and is big and bushy and strong. And so when I got this jade clipping, I was so excited, and it grew. I took care of it. We drove across Canada to move to Victoria, and it came along in the car with us so that I could take care of it the entire way. It even rolled over in the car one time in Winnipeg when I hadn't secured it, and I took a corner, and all of a sudden, you know, there it went flying, but it survived, and it flourished and flourished. And then last year, I brought another plant into the house that had some kind of bugs, and it ended up infesting it, and from the roots up, you know, just killed it essentially. But I cut off all these branches, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to try because this little, you know, this little branch here, it seems like it's okay. And it was, Reverend Karen, it was so shriveled up and so just like sad and, you know, at the end of its journey looking. But I potted it, I planted it, and I just nourished it. I put it in the sun. And this little thing that had, you know, 2 shriveled up leaves at the end of this little spindly branch, I just looked at it a few days. I mean, I look at them every day, and I talk to them every single day, and I just marvel at them. But I really saw it a few days ago for the first time. I think it was because the sun finally came out here for the first time, really, this summer. And I just realized it was plump, and it was big, and it had all these little new leaves that were growing, and it is strong, and it's standing up straight. There's no shriveliness. It's like grown into those shrivelly leaves and totally expanded and plumped them up. It is vibrant, and it is healthy, and it is alive. And I look at that, and all that it's getting is, you know, water and a little bit of food and the sunshine and my love and attention.
I was going to say that your love and your sweet talk to those plants, absolutely.
It's just doing its thing though. Like, it's just growing. Like, that's all it's doing. You know, it's not trying to become anything that it's not meant to be. It's not trying. It's just happening. And it's so amazing for me to watch and behold that. I love it. I marvel at it, and it just blows my mind every time I see something like that, how a plant, you know, can come from a little tiny seed or a clipping or something and just blossom, grow into something so spectacular, whether it's that, you know, tiny little jade, or, you know, a 300-year-old fir tree, or tomato plants that, you know, are ripe with fruit and then get mauled by a deer and still manage to keep producing 3 times after it gets mauled by a deer and still keeps producing, even though the branches have been chewed off and whatever. And we still get to, reap the benefits and harvest the tomatoes and enjoy, them as nourishment for ourselves. Like, I love that stuff. It's
That's life. That's our life experience with all of it, right? Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So you used the word inspiration a few moments ago, or inspired, when you were talking about your trip on the mountain. And inspiration is what your thesis was about. And it was a really interesting topic about whether inspiration could be considered another kind of religion. And one of the things that you talk about in there is people who inspire. And one of the people that you talk about is Dr. Jane Goodall, how she has been a huge source of inspiration for you over the years. And I was really interested to find out that you actually worked for her for 5 years. So could you talk a little bit about Dr. Jane Goodall and why she is such an inspiration for you, and what your relationship with her experience has been?
Oh, well, thank you for that. Yes. My whole thesis was about, inspiration is not a religion, but that experience certainly could be. And we all obtain inspiration from places we visit, obviously, my Kilimanjaro experience and just travel in general, and the beautiful acts of kindness, that observing acts of kindness. And then the third area is we get inspiration from people. And Dr. Jane Goodall certainly was an inspiration in my life. I was so fortunate to be able to work with her. She is an amazing woman in her own right. She turned 86 this year in April. She travels the world. Prior to the pandemic, still 300 days a year or more, just traveling around, speaking her message. She was, for those that aren't familiar, she is the primatologist in the early years that went to Tanzania, Africa, and studied chimpanzees, and she is the first person to discover that chimps were most like individuals, humans. She observed, and she did this by observing that chimpanzees take a twig, stick it into an ant hole, pull it out with all the ants running on it and eating, right? And that was like what humans do. We use utensils, we use tools to live. This was huge scientific study and research. And that brought her into her mission of educating the world about chimpanzees, about their decline in the African forest, and just the care and how much they are like us. I think she says like 97% DNA are just like humans' DNA, and they should be protected. They should be loved. They should be given life to live. And that's been her conservation and environmental and animal focus her whole life. And so she had, in addition to the Jane Goodall Institute, she started up a program for youth called the Roots and Shoots program, inspiring young people to make a difference in the area of animals, environment, and humans. And so I was her right-hand person when she was in California, working with all of her groups here. And I've had the opportunity to travel with her, to be in the midst of her giving a lecture to thousands of people, always sold out. There's a great new movie that just was released 2020 this year, and it's called Hope, Hope, in case anybody wants to watch it on Netflix. But it's a documentary about her life, and just her message is one of hope, that we all can make a difference in this world in just small ways, deciding to be kind, deciding to recycle, deciding what decisions to make about our body temple, what to eat, to exercise, to take time for others and experience nature. And whether we're voting or whether we're tithing or whether we're volunteering, we all can make a difference in big and small ways. And that's what it's going to take to change the world, to become a place where we can all live together, right? And so I happened to work with her, and she really, truly, to me, is a Mother Teresa type of individual. She speaks her truth. She walks her talk. When she speaks, just being in her presence. She has no notes. She just speaks with God's voice, I truly believe, and is so inspiring. While working with her, and I got to travel, as I said, you know, one of my greatest memories was sitting in a hotel room with her, sitting on the floor, and we were eating Chinese food, right? And we were just talking with her right-hand person, Mary Lewis, and we just were talking, and that was so sweet, and I just saw how real she was. And couple of funny stories. I mean, she takes it to the core. She uses no plastic water bottles. She would refuse water if you gave it to her in a plastic bottle. She wants it to be something that's out of a cup, not, you know, something that's reusable, I would say. And she would come out of the bathroom. One time we were at a big event where she was speaking, and she didn't use a paper towel. She just kind of went like this, and because she didn't want to use paper towel in the bathroom, and she'll come out and she'll shake somebody's hand, and her hand was still wet. And it was just her walking the talk, you know, and believing in what she does. And through working with her, I certainly changed my lifestyle, the car I drive, the appliances I have, the cleaning supplies I have in my home, eating, I'm mostly vegetarian. I eat a whole foods, plant-based diet, occasionally wild-caught seafood, but you know, I just try every day in my way to make a small difference is by lessening my impact onto this earth. Mm-hmm. And we can all just lean into her many lessons. She's amazing. I could go on and on and on about Dr. Jane Goodall, but she is one who really has, and I think that's what inspiration is, someone or something or some act that inspires you, that makes you feel alive and more creative and wanting to do more and make a difference in this world. People can do that for us. Mm-hmm. She is one of the ones. You know, other greats are like Mother Teresa, or even, you know, the Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates, and some of these great inspirational leaders and Nobel Prize winners, and people who really you can drop into and just, they light the fire, mm-hmm. on my candle to burn even brighter, being in their presence or listening to them. Mm-hmm. Don't you get that sometimes with reading a book? We can be so inspired by a documentary or a book about someone's life that just, it's contagious. It makes me want to go out and do something.
There is a movie on Netflix Canada, which maybe you guys have had too in the States. I think it's The Biggest Little Farm.
Oh, I've seen it. Isn't that great?
Oh my gosh, that journey from, you know, buying, from having the idea, first of all, of, you know, we want to do this, we want to have a farm, we want to have, and I can't remember exactly what the terminology is for it, but to have that type of farm where everything is interconnected and just, you know, feeds and nourishes and takes care of, you know, some other element of the farm, all working together cohesively. It was just incredible. And then to see that 7-year journey to where they finally, or not finally, but by 7 years, it was kind of at the stage, you know, as to what they had envisioned, but even more so and bigger and more amazing, and seeing them navigate all the challenges that they had, and then how they were inspired to solve their problems or sort of, you know, rise up to those challenges by just observing how nature behaved and how and what was just, you know, naturally happening, and then, you know, thinking, oh, instead of, you know, maybe using these machines or these tactics or whatever, let's just take advantage of what's already occurring naturally and put it together, and voila, you know, problem solved. And then, you know, it would go on to the next thing. That, I love that movie, and and I wanted to watch it again right after. Like as soon as it was done, I'm like, I'm ready to watch it again. And even though we are far cry from, buying this dust bowl and turning it into something, vital and vibrant and alive, and sort of something that serves, the community in the ways that theirs does. I think one of the biggest inspirations for us was when I got pregnant, and we were pregnant together, and there was one day I remember when Glenn came home, and he just went on this frenzy of, we're getting rid of all these cleaners and everything that we have, and we're changing it over to all, environmentally sustainable and natural and blah, blah, blah. And we had already been eating, fairly organically and mindfully and locally. And then, when I went and had my business, and then we went into the local farmers markets, that was all about cultivating and fostering and nurturing connections with artisanal producers and local farmers, and specifically organic farmers, and incorporating their goods into the desserts that my little bakery would produce, and the connectivity with everyone, and working together to build a better life, to have a better life experience, to create a better life experience for ourselves, for those around us, for our community, and outward and onward and so forth. And even though I'm sure we would have gotten there, had I not become pregnant, the idea of becoming parents, for Glenn again, but for me, for the first time, at least to a human baby, because I've always considered my former business, as my first baby. And then, several years later came the human baby, our daughter Milana. She was a huge source of inspiration, and she still is for me. She just turned 16 a couple of days ago, and she to me is a force of nature. From the moment she was born at home with this entire amazing birthing village, she was ready to take off and take on the world. She had no interest in, breastfeeding. She was just like, they put her on me, and she was like a little frog, just like darting, forward, trying to get off the pillow and move onward and upward. And she's always had this curiosity about her. She has had this super big, powerful presence about her. She's been a leader from the get-go, and she wants stuff. She wants stuff like, every sort of teenage kid and whatever does. However, there is just this confidence about her that I really feel like I didn't have when I was her age. And she just goes for it. And sometimes she needs a little bit of reassurance, but the whole time, especially I guess since we moved here, and that was about 4 years ago, where we moved here only knowing where we were going to live and knowing where she was going to go to school. We didn't have any jobs lined up. We knew almost no one here. And we just felt like this is where we are supposed to be. We're called to be in Victoria, and this is the best place for our family. And no matter how challenging it got, and it felt very challenging in the first year and a half or so, she would just go put on her backpack and her outfit for school, and she would march off to school, and I would watch her walking down the street with just, really her world was her world, and, mom and dad would take care of the rest. There was just this confidence, this assuredness, this, I know I'm taken care of. I know that I am supported. I know that everything, even though I'm really mad at my mom and dad for pulling me away from the only life I ever knew in Toronto and all my friends and all that kind of stuff, I know I'm taken care of, and I know everything's going to be okay. And she has more of that. She just oozes this strength and resilience and confidence that I just marvel at. And she continues to be such an incredible source of inspiration for me. And I'm so honored to be her parent. I feel like I learn from her every day, and she's been such a great source of conversation or sort of anecdotes for class in practitioner studies. And so, yeah, I'm very, very thankful for her as inspiration. Honey Bunch, what about you? Who's inspiring, or what's inspiring for you?
Oh, come on, where do you start?
I know the list is, I know, but there's got to be one experience or one person that just has.
No, aside from me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
Oh, no one else meets your bar, Lesia.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
No, I for me, it's almost like on a jukebox or something. I just get this thing because I get to listen to YouTubes a lot during the day at work, or just studying at night when I can, when I get home, by listening to people lecturing on YouTube. There's a lot of free stuff on YouTube because people are so passionate about what they love that they just sit and read a book or whatever and explain parts in between. And that's a good way to learn from people who, because you're getting their energy as well, that they are absorbing it, they're kind of putting the stuff into practice, and they explain little nuances that you may not have sort of received if you just read the book straight on its own. Like the other day I was listening to a guy, I think he sounds like he's Dutch, like he's from Holland or Netherlands, and he was explaining, he was reading an Emmett Fox lecture, I think he did at Unity in the 40s or something, on the what was it? Yeah, the parable of sort of Adam and Eve, like the metaphysical story of the sort of garden and what it meant, and what you're mentioning, the tree of life,
Yeah.
And it was so, like, once I heard it, I was like, oh, that's so obvious. Like, what, how have I not sort of, maybe I've heard that before, but I hadn't sort of understood it in that way. And he was explaining just little things like, look, there's nowhere on earth that you can go and see a tree that everyone knows it is as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the way it's described in the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament. And somehow people want to make it into a historical story and say, oh, it's an apple. Like Eve ate an apple and the world went to pot, And he's like, no, it's obvious that it's a metaphor. It's an allegory for something, So he goes through this sort of explanation about what these various parts are. And it was basically, Adam is not like a male man. He's the body, and Eve is the mind or the soul. And there's a split in consciousness that is basically, if you rely only on the body, you're going to have pain, right? If you're letting your body lead your existence, then you'll have pain and suffering. If you harmonize and have your mind and your soul guiding, like the mind should come first, the soul should come first, so in the story it sort of was meant to be like feminine energy, intuition, listen and be what you are from the inside, not like only feeding yourself and existing on a physical level only, because that's sort of a recipe for just, it's not going to work out too well for anyone, right? But yeah, listening to this lecture, I was like, wow, this, like, it's obvious when I hear it that it's like, it's a parable that you can kind of explain and dig deeper into. And if people get so hung up on it as like the Bible is a historical thing, like I'm not a big Bible person. I've learned more in the last 5 years about some of the stories in the Bible than I thought I ever would, because I grew up in Northern Ireland, and it's like, I don't want to know about religion it seems to be a source of conflict for people's lives. And I just think if you get the right teacher, like, the person to inspire you, as you're saying, Reverend Karen, it's just like, it opens you up. Like I said, oh, this is, I've never felt that way before. I never thought about that way before. And it's extraordinary that you can kind of connect in those ways. And I think that's kind of been what's missing, because people have been isolating themselves for the last maybe 20 years, where they get to kind of customize their preferences and their, you can stay at home and just do the things you do, and you don't have to meet other people. But one of the benefits of this whole pandemic so-called thing is that it does let you refocus on what's important. And then when you actually having interactions with people, I think you're a little bit more, you're better at listening. I hope we are better at listening than we were before.
I think that's so true. And what I hear, kind of how I resonate with what you're saying, is it's just being aware of that ego self, that has all the desires and the wants. And then, the ego self is definitely there and a part of us, but then there's also our true authentic self, our spiritual self, and just being able to understand and accept and learn from both of those working together. And it goes back to talking to people, appreciating the simple things. We've had time to really, at least my husband and I, we've came to a screeching halt, right? And really focused on some of the basics, and going back to cooking and really cleaning out our house. And we've had time to volunteer, via Zoom. My husband is involved in a nonprofit, and he's written their annual report, helped them write their annual report, and doing a fundraiser now. I just think it has given people time to just do a priority check, right? There's one thing in the Bible. I think for me, there are certain passages that really resonate, and there's one that it is done unto you as you believe. For me, that is so powerful. Is if we live a life of whatever our attitude is, whatever our heart is, however we live our life with that positive expectation, and it comes back to us. I've seen it. I believe it. I've been a part of that, and it just never ceases to amaze me that law of circulation, that just as you give or as you believe, comes back multiple. In my travels, if I could just share, one of the things, my husband and I, when we travel pretty low to the ground. I want to meet people. I want to stay in their homes. I want to be low to the ground and learn their traditions, their customs, where they go to church, just have conversations in the evening with people, or even at a restaurant, share a table with someone, just to understand what life is for them in another country. And everybody is basically the same. Everybody wants good health. They want freedom. They want a good life for their families, their children. We're all in alignment with that, I truly believe, as I found in my travels. But I know that, and I expect that when I go. And it always shows up in such amazing, kind ways. For example, we were traveling throughout Turkey. This probably maybe have been like 10 years ago. It was completely safe. We went to Turkey. We wanted to, we were in Cappadocia, and then we wanted to try to get down to the coast to take a ferry boat out to the Greek islands. And we had to connect in the middle of the night at a bus station. It was pitch dark, pouring down rain, and we had to get off of our bus and find another bus. And it was going to leave in a matter of minutes. Those connections are so short. We were the only white people. We were the only ones who spoke English. But we had a really hard time. And we were just kind of looking at our tickets thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And there was a woman that was there without an umbrella. And she pointed to our ticket and we showed it to her. And she just motioned for us to follow her all the way to the other end of the bus terminal and got us to our bus on time, and then it left. Who does that? You know, but kind people, right? I mean, people who have heart and people, I mean, and I hope I show up, you know, in such a beautiful way and in somebody's time of need or just in general in living life. I really know that we all want to show up in such a beautiful, kind way that we can support others. And it happened, it's been very beautiful that it's happened over and over again, that angels appear out of nowhere and make the path clear going forward. So yeah. It's kind of, sorry, long way of, you know, just kind of sharing topping off what you were saying. Life is so beautiful.
That part of the Bible, I'll hand it back to Lesia. That's probably like the one part, if you opened the Bible and only read that one thing and closed it, you could say, oh, I pretty much got the whole thing. Right?
I love that.
It's what do you expect, right? It's like, what are you expecting and what are you putting out? And that's what you're going to experience.
Absolutely.
Right? About it. Yeah.
And just goes to show, Reverend Karen, that you received kindness because you are kindness, right? It was reflected back to you just as you are. But what this also made me think of, and this is a great segue, is now going into one of the ways that I experience like just something else, somewhere else, some other experience is through film. And it is something that I think we probably did more together growing up than we do nowadays, where it was actually, I mean, I still remember the first time that my dad and my sister and I went to the local video store to rent a video machine for the weekend with videos that we chose, right? It was this huge contraption. It was heavy and you had to actually rent it from the store, take it home, hook it up and everything. And we watched our movies. I can't remember what the first movie was, but I remember the experience of going to the store and renting this machine. And then eventually, I don't even remember if it was at home or if it was me, but I owned a video player. And so then it was just renting the movies, going to the local Blockbuster or whatever you guys had in the States. What? And then, you know, then going out to see a movie. I mean, going to the movie theater, we would get together with groups of friends. We would go. The Toronto Film Festival was Glenn's vacation, yearly vacation for, I don't know, a decade or something like that. I went once and I did it and saw about 23 movies in a week. And that was just such an extraordinary experience to, you know, flip through this catalog, all these different genres, pick your movies. Maybe you get into it, maybe you don't, because there's so many other people that want to go. Having the opportunity to listen to directors, producers, actors, people involved in the making of, talking about their experience, talking about the movie, comedies, dramas, international stuff, horror, like the Midnight Madness movies, which were usually horror and just like crazy wackadoodle movies, a lot of them from other countries. That would be super fun. We even dragged my mom to a Korean, a Japanese one sometimes, and she just like shake her head. Oh, you too. What have you got me into? But this brings me around to the movie, which is your favorite movie, which is a favorite, at least, you know, in the top 5 maybe of a lot of people, and who a lot of people have seen more than once, is The Princess Bride. And the reason that this kind of came into my purview again recently was because your TED Talk, the sort of TED-like talks that the ministerial students did at the end of your ministerial studies, was about how The Princess Bride is such an amazing illustration for the main concepts of the science of mind and spirit teachings. But really, when, you know, you kind of boil down to it, that there's only one thing going on, you know, call it God, call it energy, call it true love, that there's only the one thing going on, and that we live according to our use of the law of cause and effect. So, you know, what we believe, what we think, that's what, you know, our life experience turns out to be. And then that there are different levels in there of that use of the law, or sort of the awareness of the level of consciousness that we're at, and how we go about our life, at that level, changing levels, expanding, whatever. So talk to us about The Princess Bride, because you came on to my discussion, my weekly discussion group, a couple of weeks ago, and this is something that we talked about. So I watched the movie. Glenn and I watched the movie a few nights before, just so that I could refresh my mind. And I'm telling you, I watched it in a completely different way. And since then, even since you came on to the Tuesday discussion group, there's still thoughts that are going through my head as to what an amazing illustration this movie is of how we can really take charge of our lives, and we can create a better life for ourselves. We can overcome challenges. We can, reach our goals. We can surpass our goals. We can just really understand and appreciate and just dive into true love and that interconnectivity and that deep connection with someone so special and beautiful in our lives, which really is just the underlying energy and foundation of all that is. So tell us why this movie is just your favorite, and what it means to you, and whichever direction you'd like to go in there.
As you wish. Do you know, it's just such a sweet, fun story. And if there is anybody out there who still hasn't seen it, you've got to go out to Netflix or Prime. It's free, it's available, it's an hour and a half, and there's something for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's fencing, and there's revenge, and there's true love, and there's miracles, and there's monsters, and there's just all of it. I just love it. I can remember showing it to my nieces, and they were very little, and how little you're curled up on the couch, all wrapped up watching the movie. And I can watch it still to this day with my husband, just sitting there, and we pretty much know all the words. So we'll start to repeat it now as we're watching it. But I think, I chose it because, when you look at something for fun, or something so casual that means a lot to you, and then you kind of put this spiritual or the metaphysical concept into it, wow, it brings it home even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how amazing. When that film was developed, oh gosh, when was that? Back in the 80s. It wasn't, it didn't, when it came out, they didn't know how to market it. At least that's what Rob Reiner has said, but it wasn't a big hit. And it wasn't until it came out on the VHS, and like you may have played it, or I played it at that time, it just became a cult classic, one of the greats. And it's a story about Wesley and this poor but perfect farm boy, right? That he was in love with Buttercup. And every time she asked him to do something like polish my saddle or fetch me that pitcher of water, he would always respond by saying, as you wish. And what he was actually meaning, actually responding to her, was, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at that very beginning part of the movie where he decides he needs to go off and find his fortune and come back and get her, because it was true love. And off he goes, and he's gone for I think 5 years, 7 years. And but he's honing in on his skills. And Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind teaching, he says that trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought.
Mm-hmm.
And what that just simply means to me is that if we're dedicated to a task or a regime, or a mindset, if we're dedicated, then what we think and what we believe can actually come to fruition in our lives. It's just such a very simple concept, like we were talking about. What is done unto you as you believe, that concept is. And so, Wesley goes through a lot of different adventures during this fairy tale story, like winning a swords fight that he had been practicing for years as the Dread Pirate Roberts. But he did. He through his skill set, his trained skill set, he won. And through the power of his mind, he's able to maneuver through obstacles. Like they were fleeing into the fire swamp, if anybody's remembering that portion. And Buttercup says, "We'll never survive." And he's like, "Oh, you're just saying that because no one ever has." Right? I mean, that's so great. And so in his mind, his positive expectancy, if you will, or his fortitude is like, of course we're going to get through it. And of course they did get through the fire swamp with much adventure. But I think going back to just in the New Thought teaching, you know, we talk about how powerful our mind is, how beautiful our mind is, and that we can create our reality. Ernest Holmes says there is a power in the universe greater than we are, and we have that power. We can use it.
Mm-hmm.
We can use it to create. And so when you stop and think and you're mindful and you really, I mean, how do we use it? I mean, I really believe that we use it through our spiritual practice, or taking walks out into nature, or being kind to other people, journaling, visioning, affirmations, whatever it is to a person to be centered in that way, and take time to love themselves as well as others, and put that thought out there, what they want. That's what's going to happen. Because you said, as through love and law, we can create our reality. And if you choose love, if you choose believing, and it's not just having an idea in your mind, you have to really believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and know it and be it. State it, claim it. I say that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yours.
Yeah, treat and move your feet too. Like,
Yeah.
you thinking, you got to actually move forward in action, take action. And in that movie, I mean, Wesley is definitely the one who is unwavering in his belief. He is just full steam ahead, highest level of consciousness the entire time, except for maybe where there's like a little bit of faltering when he and Buttercup are on top of the hill, and he has her as the dread pirate Roberts. She thinks that's who he is. He doesn't realize that she closed her heart to true love when she was told that he died. He thinks that she just went off and immediately discarded him as a memory and went on with her life. And so he's hurt by that, and he's wounded and he's pissed off. And she has no idea that this is actually Wesley. And so she finally, yells at him, convinces him, and, just says, "You're horrible. I hope that you die," pushes him down the hill. And then as he's rolling down the hill, he yells, "As you wish." And she realizes who it is, and oh my gosh, and jumps after her true love. And then the rest of the story, is him basically just constantly affirming that, this is the way it is. It's all going to work out. True love is the answer. And he's sort of the catalyst for everybody else in the story, where they are at their levels of consciousness, with Inigo Montoya, who is, his whole life he's been wanting to avenge his father, by killing the six-fingered man who killed his dad so many years ago. And he has that one affirmation, that he keeps repeating the whole time. But then when he gets, to a certain point, thinks, first, I'm never going to find him. And then, when he does, it almost looks like, oh no, the six-fingered man has gotten the best of him. But then there's something in him that just wells up and, brings him, and he rises up to the challenge, and he's able to, do what it is that he wants to do. But then, how are they going to get Princess Buttercup, out of the castle? And she's, thinking, like, my Wesley will come for me. He'll come for me. And then there's the prince, who's thinking, I'm gonna marry her anyway. It doesn't matter because I've killed off Wesley, and she's gonna be mine. And then I'm gonna kill her. And then this war is gonna, like, everybody has their own agenda.
I
But
know.
there's Wesley, who is just true love, true love, true love. And that true love goes and basically infuses itself through every other situation, every other character in that story, and brings it all together into that one amazing, beautiful, perfect true love's kiss.
At the very end, I know that is supposed to be the most passionate. What was the most passionate kiss of all time?
Yeah.
And then I have to say, the background is this beautiful red-orange sunset or sunrise, right? So it ends magnificently on such a beautiful note. And again, you started with Emerson, and being in his essay on nature. One of my favorite quotes is that Emerson says that nature wears the colors of spirit. So I think of that at the end when they're kissing and the complete sky is beautiful in colors, and it's so right. And we could just talk about it. We should watch it again together. But yeah, you have to watch this story at certain points in your life and just pick up on all those little morsels, right?
Yeah.
And Wesley was laying in that bed, remember? And he didn't even know if he was going to be able to move. He was mostly dead that day, and except for his mind. And he would just spew out all those things he was going to do to Prince Humperdinck, and as an audience, the first time I watched it, I was like, gosh, he doesn't even know if he can stand. And he's talking this brave front with all the words, but yet the power in his words, the power in his mind, even though it's a fairy tale, it brings home about, again, what you believe and achieve. So beautiful. And that's life. That's our experiences in life. If we choose to take that approach and dive in with positive expectancy.
Yeah.
So.
Mahoney, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, a couple of things where, Reverend Karen, when you were saying, just hearing you explain it again, I've heard you do this, I think, twice, and it's a little different, and it's a little bit of extra on this, emphasis on this, whatever. And this time it was about what came forth was so Wesley, you could actually, about the marketing part, you could actually do a prequel, because the whole part about him becoming Dread Pirate Roberts is a bit like the Scheherazade thing, where he's saying to him, tell me a bit more about this. I'll probably kill you in the morning, but he just lets him live. And, every day his story gets a little bit. So that's a bit like each of us have had that, where we get a little bit of adventure in our, under our belt, and then we just go on with our life and we forget the truth, but we kind of hold on to something, and then we get through our battles and our travails. But so it's also like his I'm trying to think. There's an element that I guess the Wesley character is supposed to be us, right? But it's weird because he's the male character, right?
Yeah.
But I like the way Rod Reiner infuses these sort of feminine aspects in the story, like the kiss at the end, where the little boy, the grandfather's like, you don't want to, the kiss, you don't want to see this, you don't want to hear about this. And he's like, well, I guess it's okay. Like it's just got this beautiful little flipping all the time of like, the person who normally would play the role is someone else now is going to take the turn to explain this, but yeah, the problem is with this movie and the story and the tropes in it, and the roles that each person plays, it just sort of floods your brain with like, oh yeah, it's so cool, but yeah, I think I get a little bit angry sometimes with the Buttercup character, but at the same time, she's like, in her mind, this guy's either gone or he's back on the scene, and then he's gone again. And I think she's supposed to be the other part of us, like listening, knowing what we know, but then being tested again and again and again of like, well, do you really know it to the point where you'll keep saying it even if everyone else around you is behaving in a way that is like saying, no, this isn't happening. So she's got to get through her battles, and Wesley sort of coming from the other end, and they're supposed to match up, but I don't know. And Lesia, did you show her the Carl Reiner and his and
I did tag you, Reverend Karen. Did you see the tribute that Carl Reiner and Rob Reiner, like they?
I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was brutal.
What the little covers. There's a big body in this little bed. And,
Yeah.
His tip his hat. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me. Wow, we could do a whole hour just on that movie, couldn't we?
We could. And there's nothing to say that we can't, so we totally could.
Yeah, I love it. I love
All right.
it. Okay.
That's another date then. Okay, so I'm looking at the clock and it's been an hour. So I think this is probably a good place to end. And then, well, you heard it here, folks. We're going to do another one sometime just on the Princess Bride. So this is where we come to the final segment before we close out, which is a fun, not that we haven't had fun already, but a fun, light little thing. And once again, I have forgotten my minute timer. So I'm just going to disappear for a moment and then I shall return. And then Glenn is going to lead us into the rapid fire questions segment, which is we'll learn just a little bit more about Reverend Karen and yeah, I don't even know what some of these questions are today, but I shall return momentarily.
Okay. And what does this mean? I have 1 minute, or we're going to ask questions within a 1 minute time span?
Basically, yeah. And then the number of questions you answer determines a certain thing. You find out at the end what it is.
Okay.
What do you win? You know, it's silly, but and is Lesia back or?
Yeah.
Okay. I've changed my view here. I can't hear you.
You can't change your view, Mahoney, because you're recording.
Okay, I'll change back.
Put it back.
Yeah.
Put it
couldn't
back.
see you. I couldn't hear you.
Okay. Yes, I am back. Here I am, and here are the three of us.
Given the plant-based thing, I'm just going to simplify this to
don't just do what you need to do.
all right.
Okay, so Reverend Karen, you
Yes.
just need to answer these questions as spontaneously as possible. Don't think about them and have fun. It's nothing too intense. It's just fun and goofy. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Set, go.
Okay, Reverend Karen, pick a number between 1 and 12.
7.
7. Okay, what do you prefer, showers or baths?
Oh, showers.
Okay, your favorite city to visit?
Oh, Porto in Portugal.
Okay, are you more wave or particle?
Wave.
Wave. What is your favorite spiritual truth?
Oh, that everything unfolds perfectly.
Okay, and exercising or lazing around?
Oh, exercising.
Hugh Jackman or Mandy Patinkin?
Mandy.
Walking on the beach or walking in a forest?
Oh, toss up. Walking in a forest.
How many tattoos do you have?
0.
Spiritual prototype or mental equivalent?
Ooh, a mental equivalent.
Done.
Okay.
Okay, so that was 9 questions.
9 questions. Okay.
That was fun. That was good.
Okay.
I don't know what my score is. I don't know what my prize is.
Well, now you're about to find out what you won. Your imagination.
Okay, great.
Okay. And you have won. It's a Thai restaurant that we love going to. So this is just the numbers relate to what's on the menu. And because there's so few options in the appetizer, I'm just going to pick for you. I'm picking vermicelli. I'm picking the spring rolls because everything else has something in it you wouldn't probably like. And for number, what was it, 9 or 7?
9.
9. You're getting the crapo tofu, which is a stir-fried tofu with fresh chili, red and green peppers, onions, garlic, and basil.
Love it.
Which
I've
is
had that. That's good.
pretty delicious.
I
Yeah,
love it.
and probably some steamed coconut rice on the side. Yeah. Sorry, it's silly, but that's what we're
Was there
doing.
a dessert?
No, because they don't have any dessert.
They don't?
No,
Drinks?
no.
It's all good.
Very strange.
How about we give her a mango lassi?
Mango lassi is a good one. To go with.
That
There's a
is.
separate menu. There must be a separate drinks menu that we don't have access to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so there you go. Enjoy that meal. Imagine how good it tastes and how wonderful it smells.
I'm gonna have it for lunch. Thank you very much. Lassie and Glenn, thank you so much. It was fun. Love sharing with you. You've got such great energy, and your energy is contagious. So thank you for what you give to me and for all your guests and for your audience.
Thank you so much, Reverend Karen. It has been such a joy and such an inspiration having you here with us today. And yes, let's talk about The Princess Bride some more another day, because that is just so chock-a-block, full of so much. And yeah, we could definitely
even pull in some clips, right?
And just to make this interesting, maybe if you do that at the end, we got to figure out another movie to go lead on to, because there's got to be other movies that we can metaphysically interpret, right?
For sure.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, just as a side, on Disney Plus, we went back and we just took out the 1-month membership so we could see Hamilton, but we saw the last 9 issues of Star Wars, and we saw them in the right order this time. Okay, so there is so much spirituality in that movie. You know, the Force be with you. Just know that it's really, I took it that way. I saw it in a whole different light this time around.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if I can go through all that again.
Okay. Maybe the original 3 I could handle. Yeah. All right. Okay. So on that note, thank you. Thank you. This was so wonderful, so delightful, so fun. And I'm glad you won such a delicious meal to enjoy after all of this spiritual jibber jabbering. And thank you, Mahoney, for your questions and for your input. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So for now, let's all just consider, who do we think we are, and move from there. And I look forward to the next conscious conversation as it comes up. So bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lesia Kohut, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping us make this podcast a reality. Video editing, Lori Savage, Lesia Kohut. Music, Vasco Lourenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, sakkmesterke, copyright 123rf.com. Graphic design, Lesia Kohut. For more information on this podcast and our Lesia Kohut Soul Excavator, please visit www.lesiakohut.com. Thank you for listening to Who Do You Think You Are?